Hi, everyone. I'm Chloe Sanders. I'm the Education and Outreach Coordinator at NAMI, Virginia. And thank you so much for being here for our It's Okay Not to Be Okay NAMITalks panel in honor of Phoebe Moore Campbell Minority Mental Health Awareness Month. This is such an important conversation, and I'm so glad to be able to be joined by all of our panelists today who are going to be sharing about their own experiences. We'll be hopping into our conversation and questions soon, but before that, I'd love if everyone could introduce themselves. You're welcome to share any information about your identity, your involvement or connection to mental health, such as being someone with lived experience, a family member, or being someone who works in a mental health related job. In addition to that, I think it'd be great to share one of your favorite things to do so folks can get to know you all better. Keisha, do you want to go ahead and get us started?
Sure. I'm Keisha, and I work with NAMI Central Virginia as a volunteer and also as an educator for several classes. I actually have 2 family members with mental health challenges that I support.
Thanks, Keisha. Regina, do you want to go next?
Sure. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Regina Renee. I'm the founder of Mindful and Melanated, and we are an online community that helps support Black women with all their mental health and wellness needs. I am a person with lived experience. I have been suffering from depression and anxiety since childhood, and my first attempt was at the age of 12.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us, Regina. Alicia, it looks like you're next on my screen.
Sure. Hi, I'm Alicia Doe. I am a person who has mental illness of their own. I have bipolar, ADHD, and general anxiety disorder, and PTSD. I'm also part of the LGBTQ community. And I also am a caretaker to 3 children that also have mental health issues. Generate all the way from ADHD to mood disorders, and they are all under the age of 12. So it's a very full house, and yeah, so that's why I'm here. So thank you.
Yeah, it sounds like you have your hands full, Alicia. Keith, you're next on my screen.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Keith Tate. I am on the board of directors for American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, the National Capital Area chapter. And I'm also on the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee for our chapter. And I have lived experience. I'm diagnosed bipolar, ADHD, and I'm also a suicide attempt survivor. And one of my favorite things to do is spend time with my family and go to the beach.
It's a good time to go to the beach right now since it's so hot. Portia, I think you're the last one if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I do recognize some of you. I am Portia Chan, and I work with Chloe at NAMI, Virginia. I took some time away from NAMI, Virginia, and I wrote grants for an arts organization in Richmond. I am a certified peer recovery specialist, and I co-facilitate a family support group. And I have lived experience. I do live with anxiety and depression, and I was also the caretaker for my father from a very young age. So I think I was 12 when I realized my dad had anxiety and severe depression. And as soon as I could start driving, I was his main caregiver and caretaker. Now my dad is over 80 and losing his memory, so I'm still his caregiver in many ways. Along with that, I am also a mother with 2 children, and one of my children has suffered with depression and anxiety since they were 4. And now that she is in middle school, she's doing better, and she is part of the LGBTQIA community. So I am learning a lot about that community as well. But I'm happy to be here and to share experiences, my own directly and as a caregiver, and now as a mental health professional. In my leisure time, I love spending time with my family. I love dance. I did a lot of dance when I was younger, and I still do it now. That's my main therapy. And it's great to be back at NAMI, Virginia, at least for the summer, to help with the walk. And it's great to see you all. So thank you.
We're very happy to have you back, Portia. And thank you so much to everyone for sharing what you all have so far. If I'd love to hear more about your own mental health journeys or how you or your family have been impacted by mental illness or mental health challenges, if anyone would like to share more. Otherwise, we can kind of jump into the next question, but I'd love to hear more if anyone's open to it.
I want to say I come from a community being part of the AAPI, Asian American Pacific Islander, and I think now it's also DESI Americans, the AAPIDA. So if I'm excluding, I don't mean to, I just have not learned all the terminology yet, but I am learning. But as a child, being in middle school and seeing my dad's moods change from being very, very, very depressed to being very anxious and feeling so helpless, I found that it was hard to ask for help. I felt a lot of stigma within my own community. But by the time I turned 16 and was able to talk with doctors and nurses and psychiatrists and counselors, it took practice. And now I'm almost 50, but I still feel like there's still the 16-year-old in me, and that made me into a better advocate for my dad. But the main lesson I learned is that it's not my fault. All the time I thought it was my fault. And sometimes when a parent is the one who suffers, they can say things that are mean, they can say things that are hurtful, but it's not them that's talking, it's their illness. And illnesses can be, I can't say that they can be cured, but they can be helped in a lot of ways. And I found that NAMI and all of NAMI's resources over the years have been tremendous.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Portia. As I said in my introduction, my first suicide attempt was at the age of 12. I was suffering from depression and anxiety from a very young age. And the way it manifested itself was two ways, right? So I was always tired, moody, always in the bed. And so my parents didn't know if I was just being a lazy teenager or what, right? So we didn't talk about depression and anxiety in our household because, similar to what Portia was saying, in the Black community, there is still a stigma around mental health and illness. And so on the flip side, as I got a little bit older, and I found out I had a major depressive disorder diagnosis, I would try to hide behind this mask of this, the strong Black woman. So I was an overachiever, always, got good grades, always had a decent job, always, put myself together just to hide the fact that inside I was really I was suffering. And, because I was the strong friend, right? I couldn't go to anybody and say, hey, I'm suffering, because they always came to me, right? So it's like Portia was saying, it took me a while to just kind of talk about it, advocate for myself, and just realize, this is a condition that I have, and I have to just manage it as best as I possibly can.
Thank you so much, Regina. Would anyone else like to share more about this question?
Yeah, Regina, what you kind of just said just really resonated with me. Growing up my entire life, I believe that I've suffered with major depressive disorder, anxiety, depression. I also had a attempt at a very young age. But when I got to college, I just kind of masked that by excessive alcohol abuse. And that was kind of like my coping mechanism for a lot of the things that I went through. And for me, the biggest, I don't want to say issue, but problem that I found as an adult, now, I'm married, I have two small kids. I kind of got into that depressive state where I was tired all the time. I was always in the bed, and it caused a big gap between myself and my wife. And I couldn't figure out what was going on. And the problem that I found was trying to get help was very hard. Right before my most recent attempt back in 2019, I was at the, doctors, and I asked, I needed to see somebody, and they told me that I had to wait 3 months for an appointment. And, I tell the story all the time. And, my first response right after that was, what am I supposed to do for the next 3 months? I mean, and I think that is a big issue that, I know American Foundation for Suicide Prevention and NAMI and everybody, we're trying to kind of bridge that gap of, from the time that someone is seeking help to when they're actually able to do so. So, Regina, it definitely resonated with me about, trying to be that strong, Black woman, obviously as a man, but in the African-American community, you're supposed to be that strong person because we have, our culture has gone through so much. So like, what are your issues compared to, what everybody else is going through. So, I appreciate your sharing.
I appreciate you sharing all of that, Keith, as well. And it can be so difficult to try to figure out kind of how to navigate that when there are those types of wait lists and being able to seek care and find care. And I get questions like that a lot through our helpline as well. Did anyone else want to add anything to this question before we move on to the next one? Okay, I'll go ahead and kind of jump on to the next one. So I think a lot of you all who spoke with this last question kind of went into this, but so I'm going to kind of combine that one with this next one, which is if you feel like you or your loved ones have been able to receive care from providers that was comprehensive and inclusive to all aspects of your identity, or where you felt comfortable being open about topics like stress and trauma, or like the negative impact that comes from systematic racism or racial discrimination, and kind of just how being in a minority community or as a person of color impacted finding the help you may have wanted or needed.
I think for me, it was really hard to get help for my children. They were already in a crisis moment, and there's a lot of preventable methods, but there's nothing like for when they're happening, when the crisis is happening. I mean, there's a mobile crisis, but it's like they're not going to be able to absorb anything in. And I've had to call the police numerous of times. Luckily, I've called CIT officers, but not all of them are especially trained. And we had one incident where one police officer grabbed my son and threw him on the couch and, swore at him. And, I complained later, but it was just like not enough out there to, educated that, kids have mental health issues. It's real. And, and my fear was my kids are, kids of color. They are African-American. And so my fear is, I've had to have those talks, and my fear is my son going out there. He's also autistic. And all they see is this angry Black kid, and they're not going to consider, oh, maybe he's autistic, maybe he's got a mood disorder. They're just going to see this angry Black kid. They're going to grab him, and he's already got a bad image ever since that day of cops. So it scares me. For the longest time, I was like, no, you're not going outside, especially when there was all the riots and stuff going on, and it scares me. It does. And I didn't think I would have to have those conversations, but you got to. And it's sad that we have to have those conversations. But it wasn't until it was a hard decision, but I ended up putting my son in a residential facility for 6 months. He's now back. He just got discharged in this past June. But it was hard being away from him. But at the same time, he needed that. And it was like I was begging the team. I have to actually go and beg a team to provide the care. From what I'm seeing, I'm like, you're not here at home. You're not getting calls from school. You're not here when I'm making calls to the 911. I'm like, something needs to be done. He needs help. And now he's a completely different child. That residential facility did wonders. And I know that sometimes you get back and forth about residential facilities, but we ended up finding one, and the director there calls them young heroes. And so it's a lot of positivity, and it was great, and I loved it. And it's sad that we have to go, that it's not covered through insurance, that we have to go and ask for the funding. So that's kind of where I was at. But now things have gotten a lot better. And oh my gosh, there's more of a bond. He's not mad at me anymore. It's been great. So thank you.
Yeah, I can certainly identify with what you're saying because my son is also autistic, and he has had, 2 suicide attempts, and he's been hospitalized twice. And we really had a hard time finding comprehensive services because, they wanted to put him in a box. They wanted to say, well, he's presenting in the same way that several other children present on and off the spectrum. But, that was very different for my child who already had communication issues, who was diagnosed with major depressive disorder, OCD, generalized anxiety. And, he's just going through a lot of trauma from bullying because he's autistic. So I found that when he was discharged from residential placement, he had to be reintegrated back into society, if you will. So his school was leery about having him back in, their building because they were afraid he was going to hurt himself there and they'd be liable. So we took a lot of time just trying to find people who were willing to work with him. And when he finally got back into the school system, it was like he regressed. So we had to start all over with certain classes for him while he's doing these treatments that weren't allowed in the school system. So it was challenging, but like you, we found the right team, the right formula, and it's been working great for him now.
I'm so happy to hear that things have gotten better, or you all have been able to find kind of treatment to actually help and have that support system. I think that's so important. Did anyone else want to add to this question before we move on to the next one? I just want to make sure everyone gets a chance if they'd like to speak. Okay, so I'll go ahead and go to the next one. Stigma is something that we talk about a lot at NAMI Virginia. So I kind of wanted to talk to you all to see if you have been experienced by stigma in your own mental health journeys or the journeys of your family members, and kind of how that sort of appeared in your lives or in their lives.
So I've experienced, I've suffered from stigma 2 different ways. One, from my peers and my family, because like I said, like depression and anxiety or any type of mental illness is really not talked about in the Black community, at least not when I was growing up. And it was like, the old saying is, we don't go to therapy, we go to church. Therapy is for white people. Like, I was literally told by someone that the reason why you're depressed, Regina, is because you have a demon in you and you need to pray harder. Like, like what is that, And another way that I've gotten stigmatized is similar to Keith. I suffered from alcohol addiction as well. And so when you try to go in for treatment, first they label you as a junkie, right? So they don't take into consideration like your mood disorder, or they just simply just treat you as if you're someone who is coming in to a facility to get pills or whatever. And it's real. And it's like, it's re-traumatizing. And it's like, I came here for assistance, but you're re-traumatizing me and you're labeling me. And yes, I have this addiction and I came here because I need help. And so it's tough.
I have a very unique childhood and experience because I obviously grew up in an African-American home, but I went to private Catholic school my entire life, all the way up until college, pretty much. And so I kind of saw it from both sides. And so when you look at like the stigma aspect of it, I didn't know where to go or who to turn to talk to, because on both sides, whether it be, going to Baptist church on Sundays and, to Regina's point, they would say, well, you need God, you need Jesus. Or even on the Catholic side where, oh, you just have demons in you, like there was always something wrong with me. I used to be really religious, but I think that entire experience kind of swayed me to, not identify as, one religious, group or the next. I just kind of say that I'm spiritual. But as an adult, after I was diagnosed bipolar, I've had people very close to me and that I respect, basically tell me that I need to stop taking my meds because it's going to affect my, job opportunities in the future. I had people that I respect tell me that I shouldn't speak out about my attempt or my, illness because it's going to affect, my job opportunities going forward. And for a while, I, actually thought that they were right. But being a mental health advocate, I felt like a hypocrite if I'm telling people to speak out and talk to me and tell me what's going on. And, you need to be open and, there is help if I'm still, hiding behind, the curtain and not giving everybody, what I've lived through and show that like you can come out on the other side. There is help, there is assistance, there are groups that are able to help you. And so, my message to people is, I get like, obviously, if you are religious and you want to, go to your pastor or your, priest, definitely do that. But we also want to make sure that they are reaching out to, trained mental health, physicians that are able to help them. AFSP just partnered with a organization called Soul Shop. And what we are trying to do is actually work with them to get into the churches to kind of provide them the views of what the Bible says about suicide and things of that nature, so that they can start to help the people that are coming directly to them for assistance. There's an article that was in I think the National institution. Basically, it outlined like how many people actually go to their churches, and it basically says 94% of the parishioners, if someone were coming to them and saying they have a serious mental health challenge, the members of the clergy will actually refer them to a health counselor, and 62% refer them to a medical doctor, which is awesome because at least we know that when they're actually going to these people, they actually are referring them to get help. So, that's it.
I had a hard time with the issue of belonging. I have never felt that I really belonged anywhere. I didn't belong in the mainstream culture. Sometimes I was not belonging in my own in-group culture. Sometimes the harshest stigma came from other Asian American Pacific Islander people. And I received comments like, oh, your family must have done something bad. This is karma, as if it was some kind of punishment. And the fact that my father, who was a very outspoken person in his middle age, he was very much a stereotype breaker. And so he was not always the most popular person, even though he could be very much right. But having to, not really having a father, having a loving, supportive, strong mother helped a lot, but also not having a lot of extended family close by made it very hard. But so for a long time, I actually internalized stigma and felt that I could never belong anywhere, that I must be wrong, that I must be punished, that somehow my anxiety, my depression, my dad's anxiety and his depression, it was all somehow deserved. And I didn't conscientiously think that, but I had internalized it very subliminally. It really wasn't until I became a mother myself and I realized this can happen to anybody. And I had an experience early on with a group of mothers where they did outcast one mom because they thought she had some type of mental illness. She did have some type of anxiety. So I learned early on to be very careful how I share, but ironically, here I am sharing very publicly because I feel like the more we talk about it, the more normalized it becomes. For my own daughter, who is coping very well with her anxiety and doing very well overall, I feel like the experiences I had helped me to help her. And maybe there are other families that are also AAPI. Maybe they're not used to someone who looks like me or like them talking like this. But I think the more we do it, the better off we are. But it is hard. But that stigma within the in-group is difficult. The treatments that are more normalized and more commonplace, the therapy, that doesn't necessarily always work for all groups. It was certainly not formed with the data sets from a very diverse population at all. And in the AAPI culture, sometimes mental illnesses and emotional illnesses are described more in somatic terms. So I've learned as a practitioner and as an advocate to really hear if someone has a discomfort in their body, to ask about the situation around it, especially if it's not curable by other medical means. And also the one strength I found over the years, the older I get, there is a certain type of reference that comes for older women in my culture. So I'm using that. I'm taking it all because I didn't have it when I was younger, but I think being able to share and to be a very thoughtful listener and to speak from my own lived experience, both as the daughter of someone with mental health challenges, living through it myself, and now as the parent. I feel like all those perspectives help me to be there for my own community and others who feel like they don't belong for whatever reason.
Stigma definitely has found a way in the dating scene, and I'm currently in that. So, I in my profile I put that I have it. I'm very open with it. I talk about it a lot, so I put it in my profile. Why not? You either gonna accept me for who I am, or because it's a part of me. So a lot of people ask, and they're like, "Oh, that means you're crazy. That means you're psycho. That means," and I get that. Yo, you're that crazy Latina. I get that all the time, and I'm like, so I pull out my educated card, and and this is a time where I'm educating. I'm like, okay, well, these terms aren't very nice, but I take the time to really educate and be like, well, this is how it is. This is how I am. Everyone's different. Um, some people you still are like, yeah, but you're one way this way, one way now. It's like I'm like, they get all the stuff from, movies and TV shows. And I get it. Those things sell. Of course it does. Lifetime movies where you got that bipolar girl murdering people. It's dramatic. You want to label them. Of course it's going to be exciting. I watch those shows. I like it too. But I don't wake up every morning wanting to feel like I'm going to go, out. I'm not a angry person to begin with. So that's why it baffles me when people think bipolar, oh, you must be aggressive, you must be crazy, you must be heartless, and it's so far from the truth. When I was in nursing school, we each, in the psychiatric class, we each had a diagnosis. So she puts up on the screen this lady bashing her head into a mirror. Hey, this is bipolar. And I'm like sitting there going, what? So then that's when I began talking about it, and people really were coming up to me and going, you don't look like you have bipolar. And it was like, it doesn't have a look. You don't go to it's not there, it's not written on my face. I mean, so I began educating people about that, and it baffles me what image they get. And I know it's from programs, TV shows, and news, but there are people like us that live, work, have families. Not to say that we don't have struggles, because we do. Some are some are on medication, some are not. But it still to this day baffles me that we still have to come out and kind of explain ourselves. And so that's kind of where I'm at. But I'm happy to educate people. I'm, let's sit down and talk about it. Let's unstigmatize it.
Can I just say, Alicia, good for you, because you have more grace than I do, because I get exhausted trying to educate people about, my mental health struggles and what mental illness can look like, or will look like, or won't look like. I just get so super frustrated. So I commend you, Alicia.
Thank you all for sharing, like in regards to that question. And Alicia, yeah, it's in the media, mental illness can really be so sensationalized. It's very difficult to find actual like good representation, but hopefully there will be some out there eventually. I kind of flipping sides a little bit too. I think it's important to talk about, especially for those of you too who have found support and you found ways that have helped, whether that's through professional treatment, whether that's through kind of your own community support systems. I'd love to hear how you have gone about finding support and help for yourself, or for those of you who were mentioning your family, and if there are any specific resources out there that you do wish people of color or folks in minority communities knew more about.
Yes, so I have definitely gravitated towards support groups, and NAMI has so many of them, and I love it. I know that there's one per people of color, families of color, on the second Saturday, I want to say. That is a very yes, Portia, you know, yes. So it's support groups through NAMI, through CHAD, through DBSA have really helped me feel like I'm not so isolated, feel like I'm not so alone. Because even if you talk about it with your friends who are very supportive, it's different than actually having empathy and to really understand. And then when other people share their stories and you're like, oh, I've been in that dark place. I've been in that, oh my gosh, they understand. And it's so different. And not to say my family's been great. My mom has been so super supportive. She's always been there, my biggest advocate. And I have great friends as well, that I have one friend, especially if I call her, she's there. She's my go-to. She helped me when I actually hospitalized myself one time, and she walked me through it. So having good support systems has been very fundamental to my sobriety and to my mental health as well. I do have the alcoholism, and I'm currently now a peer recovery specialist. I just took the training, so yay. So it's an ongoing thing though. It's an ongoing thing. So.
My community support systems have been amazing, like friends and family. But I'm going to be honest, like it took me a long time to accept their help and support, or to even ask for it. Because like I said earlier, I was wearing this mask of, oh, I can handle anything. I'm the strong Black woman, this and that. So it took me a very, very long time to actually ask and reach out for help. And then now that I'm accepting the help, it's made a world of difference. As far as my clinicians are concerned, it took me a long time to find a clinician that gelled well with me. It's a Black woman, and it's important for me to have a clinician that that is not only well trained and culturally competent, but can just understand my lived experience as a Black woman in America. Because there have been times where I've had therapists, your session's only 45 to 60 minutes, and I'm sitting there spending 20 minutes explaining my Blackness to this person. They don't understand what I'm talking about. And it's like, when am I going to get some therapy up in here, So yes, it's like my community support systems have been key for me. And now that I finally have an amazing therapist and an amazing prescriber, it's just a world of difference.
Yeah, for me, it's, was AFSP. AFSP really, I tell people all the time, saved my life. I found AFSP about a month after my attempt. And, we have what's called Out of the Darkness community walks. And so, people raise money for suicide prevention. And being at those walks or any of our events, I feel very comfortable. Like I feel like, you know, my mask or my shell kind of comes off because everybody there, you know, understands and relates, and, you know, you can have open conversations, and, you know, people walking around giving hugs pre-COVID, you know, but those type of things. And, you know, and that was one of the main reasons why I, you know, joined the board, because I wanted to help bring awareness and, you know, let people know that there are resources out there. Because, you know, when you are in that place I refer to as the darkness, you know, you feel like you're so alone and nobody understands you, and you can't talk to anyone, especially if you aren't fortunate enough to have family, friends, you know, that are willing or able to, you know, accept what's going on and try to help you. You know, you just feel like you're by yourself. So, you know, AFSB has really been a really big, you know, resource for me to kind of, you know, get through and navigate that space, and help me come on another side. And, you know, for anyone who is looking for resources, you can go to afsp.org, and we have a section called supporting diverse populations. So it's resources for all Black, Indigenous, people of color, and other minority groups. So check it out. And, you know, again, just have hope, and, you know, just know that you're not alone. There are resources out there to help you.
Yeah, I had trouble initially finding peer support groups that kind of spoke to me. And that's one of the reasons why I founded Mindful and Melanated, because I wanted a peer support group that was specifically for Black women. Like I've gone to other peer support groups where it's a diverse group, but I just wanted something specific and unique to my needs. And I feel like the women in my community, I feel like they pour more into me than I pour into them. And I'm so grateful for that. I also attend like group therapy for my addiction, and that has been amazing as well too. So like everyone is saying, you know, when you're in that dark place that Keith referred to, it's very isolating. You feel very lonely, but these groups have been amazing for me.
One of my biggest issues, and I kind of alluded to it earlier, was about like the time that you have to wait to kind of see a therapist. And recently, you know, I have a psychiatrist and, you know, a psychologist, but I've had 3 psychologists this year and 2 new psychiatrists this year. And just because, you know, they have a shortage and, you know, they don't have the capacity to be able to assist, it's really been a struggle for me, because, you know, obviously they have to provide me with a psychiatrist because they need to give me my medication. But when it comes to the psychologist, it's, you know, hey, you need to find a new psychologist. We'll schedule an appointment for 3 months out. And then it's like, you know, and I have to stay within my network because it's, you know, insurance, or you can go out of network and, you know, pay X dollars. And it's, you know, that kind of can get really expensive really quick. And so, you know, I'm always looking for other resources just to try to look outside of insurance and paying out of pocket to where you can, you know, try to get help. And I think the peer support groups are a great option.
I think you all mentioned some great resources, and I appreciate you kind of embellishing on the ways in which that you have found help. Because like Portia was saying, it's not a one direction route and what works for everyone. And sort of connected along the lines, I think, to finding support. How would you explain to someone if they were trying to figure out how to start those conversations with folks in their community or with their family members about mental health, or about specifically their mental health? How would you say to do that? Because I think sometimes people aren't sure of how to kind of get those conversations started, and it can be really daunting.
For me, the first thing that I would tell someone is, before you have any conversation with someone, categorize your support systems, right? Because we have a whole bunch of people in our life. We have some friends that we go to the club with. We have some friends that we have intellectual conversations with. We have some friends that we can actually pour our soul into. So I would say, put your supports in a bucket, you know, and then the ones that you know and can truly identify as the ones that will be the supports that you can have this difficult conversation with, that's the person that I would start with first. And then just use a lot of I statements. You know, this is how I'm feeling, this is what I'm experiencing. And then tell them, you know, how they can support you. And then be honest and say, sometimes I really don't even know how you can support me, but I'm letting you know that this is what I'm going through right now.
And then on the other side of that, if you are the individual that is concerned about, you know, somebody who you believe may be struggling, you know, just for me, I always say, just ask them how they're doing. You know, I think sometimes, at least for me, like I'm very intuitive and I can kind of sense when something is wrong. And so I just always, you know, I have this thing, I have a little chair behind me and somebody gave me a little, can't see it, but a little handicap thing. And it actually says area of refuge. So like I have my coworkers will actually come and just sit and I just listen to them. And, you know, I kind of ask probing questions just to kind of dig a little deeper. But, you know, for anybody who, you know, is concerned, just have a conversation, ask them how they're doing, ask them if they need anything, let them know that you are there. You're not, you know, judging, you're not going to be judgmental. You just want to make sure that, you know, they're okay because you care about them. And, you know, you want to be there to kind of help them. So just asking, and most of the times, you know, people will kind of open up to you because they feel, again, isolated, alone, and nobody cares. So when someone actually does show that they care, you know, a lot of times they will be willing to open up.
Yeah, agree with Regina that we have to categorize our social support networks. There are different degrees of trust and different types of intimacy. And Regina is right. There are some people that we have in our lives that we might have fun with, but they're not the ones that we might go to for serious conversations. And that's okay. That's not a estimation of the friendship or the connection. It's just the context and what is comfortable. But I think in some ways it's easier to go to someone you don't know. So I think starting with NAMI, either the helpline or your local NAMI, talking with the support groups and then really analyzing for yourself what you actually need. Like what type of help do you want? Do you want a counselor that can talk therapy? Do you want a support group? Do you want some type of wellness plan that might include exercise, social connections, how to get through work? If work is, because I think when we do feel mental distress, it's hard to feel connected in a workplace, and that can do a lot of damage to someone's ability to produce and to feel a sense of efficacy. But I think there really is that point of asking oneself, who do I know that I can trust, who might have similar experiences and who might have had similar frustrations with trying to find help? And beyond that, who can I talk to who has no preconceptions of who I am and is not judging me because they don't know me? And in that case, NAMI is a great resource to start with. And because it's peer-to-peer, we meet each other very much at level circumstances, because sometimes with more advanced degree psychologists and psychiatrists, sometimes without meaning to, they can't always come and meet us where we are, and that's nothing against them. It's just a different role and a different placement professionally. But I do think just asking, just really starting that conversation right, with even with oneself, because that is the most key relationship sometimes, how we talk with ourselves in our heads, how we guard ourselves. Have we ever felt listened to or heard? Not for myself, particularly in other individuals I know where it was the parent that had the mental illness. We've never felt heard. We've never felt safe. We've never felt protected. So therefore, taking that first step to trust someone is hard, and that's okay. To start like that, that sometimes trust is hard.
So thank you all for kind of explaining on the ways that people can go about doing that. I think those were some really great answers and kind of where people can start. And Keith, I love your chair. I think that's a great idea. I love having those conversations with people, and it really it really opens up that door, I think, and makes it kind of fun too, because someone's like, oh, what's this? And then they might kind of just know you're a welcoming person. I think sometimes the little things as well, just like even having like a sticker or something, like I have a little rainbow heart on my purse. So like people in the LGBTQ community can know that they can be kind of safe with me, or that I may be in it as well. And I think those are good starters. And for this last question, so we can kind of wrap up, is there anything else that you'd like to share or you wish others knew about when it comes to identifying within a minority community, and or as a person of color, if being impacted by mental illness? And if there's anything that you'd like to plug that you haven't already, you can also do that now, or share how folks can connect or follow up with you if that's something that you're interested in.
The one thing that or reoccurring questions or barriers that I have heard from people that are seeking help is the issue when it comes to insurance. People who may not have insurance feel like there are no resources out there for them. But as I'm sure everybody on here knows, there are resources that people can utilize, and they don't have to worry about having insurance. The community service boards for each state or county, you can reach out to them, and there are resources that they will be able to help you. So I just, always tell people, just because you do not have insurance does not mean that you cannot get help.
I think one thing that I found is difficult to say, but even more difficult to be internalized, is that being a member of a BIPOC community, we are not monolithic. And that we all know that we're individuals. Our identification within our in-groups and our cultural groups is important to us, but it might not be the most central part of a person. We are people first. And I think just when it comes to finding a practitioner or a support group or any other type of service, sometimes we are already judged, and sometimes there's these automatic narratives that pop into place. And that's just simply not true. I've found on the flip side, when I have worked with other AAPI women who come for mentoring or for peer support, sometimes they don't know their own narratives. They have taken someone else's narrative and made it their own because the person looks like them. They might aspire to be like them, but it's not. When you dig more deeply, that is not the issue. They've just picked a narrative that they felt comfortable with, but over time they can't get well because they're not learning themselves. So internally as well as externally, we are not monolithic. We're individuals, and when it comes to finding the right method and modality of feeling a sense of positive self-regard and wellness and self-efficacy, there's so many different ways. But I found what works best for people who are in the BIPOC community and who are not in it is that when they find the thing, the person, the people that actually makes them feel like they can be the most beautiful version of themselves, not just the best version, but the most beautiful version of themselves. And you see them soften and brighten up. It's really quite magical. So I think that's what I'd like to share most of all, that we are not monoliths. A narrative might fit you, but it's not exactly always you. We're all individual, and find who and what makes you feel like you can be the most beautiful version of yourself ever. And it's just beautiful. It's magical. It's healing.
Yeah, and to piggyback off what Portia just said, your mental wellness journey is your journey. It's your personal journey. And you may want to go to therapy. You may not want to go to therapy. You might want to take a restorative yoga class. There are different ways that you can, improve or maintain your mental health and wellness, right? And then, if you do decide, to see a therapist, you can always fire that person if you're not gelling well with them. Don't force yourself to see someone just because, yes, they have these letters behind their name, but if you don't gel well with them, you don't gel well with them. And that's okay. It's nothing against them. It's nothing against you. It's just like Portia was saying, find what and who works for you.
I like writing. So journaling is a really good option, putting your thoughts into the day. Sometimes my journaling is like babbling, like, oh, there goes the curtain again, or something that does not make sense. And so, and when you go back and read it, you're just like, what was I thinking? And it might put a smile on your face because that's what it's there for. And then, you go back and look at memories going, wow, I was there at one point and now I'm not. Or, okay, I did work on this, and, or, oh, I still need to go for that. So it's a good outlet. And always remember to self-care, even if it's something little. Like mine is being able to take a bath and with no disruptions. But I find it that the kids need something when I'm in the bath. They're knocking on the door going, we lost something. And I'm like, I guarantee you it's not in here. Okay. It's not here. And so it's interesting, ways that you have to find self-care. Sometimes I go out to the car if it's just for me. And it's just something to do. It's something that that helps me put a smile on my face. So yeah, and if you want to reach out to me, you can. I'm here to talk. I don't know what I can give, what sort of you can reach me on my email, I guess, ajdovargas@yahoo.com. And yeah, I'm here.
And so I love to read. I also love to journal, Alicia. But so a book that I'm reading right now, which has really helped me, is called What Happened to You, by Dr. Perry and Oprah Winfrey. And it's all about how your childhood trauma has affected you as an adult. So I highly recommend anyone read it, because it really is eye-opening to kind of walks through the brain and kind of shows you how, what has happened to you as a young child, and all the childhood trauma that you may or may not have experienced has affected you as an adult.
Yes, and if anyone wants to reach out to me, feel free. You can go to my website, mindfulandmelanated.com. We have different resources available. We have a private Facebook group you can join, where I have like digital downloads, like a therapist hiring guide, a self-care checklist, things like that. So feel free to join us. Again, it's mindfulandmelanated.com.
Is there anything else anyone would like to share before we wrap up?
Well, I just have to share this. I mean, every October we have our NAMI walks. It is a fun event. It is a fundraiser, but you don't have to, of course, we want you to raise funds for NAMI. However, it is open to everyone. We'll have live music, we'll have vendors and sponsors, and you can walk. And you can walk for free, and you'll find other people who have been through similar experiences and can share hope and help. And so resources galore. So it is October 8th at the Diamond in Richmond, Virginia. And it's our, I think it's our, is it our 22nd NAMI walks? I can't remember, but we've been having it for a while. But this is going to be our first one that's in person since 2019. So being around other people who are peers who have been through similar things, and just being around that energy is really exciting. We look forward to it every year. My team is called NAMI Walks, WOKS, because NAMI started as a kitchen table. And a lot of cultural and ethnic communities and families, the walk or some type of big pan is very central to togetherness and belonging. But a lot of our most intimate and meaningful conversations happen at the dinner table or at the brunch table, or ice cream, dessert. But it's just that cooking is what connects us to our ancestors as well as our children.
We also, AFSP has the Darkness walks for anyone in the Northern Virginia area. We have walks in Fairfax, Prince William, Manassas, Loudoun, and then our largest ones in DC. So check out our website, afsp.org, and you can search for those.
Thank you so much again, everyone, for joining us today. I think this was a wonderful conversation, and I'm excited we get to share it with the NAMI Virginia community and also the larger community that hopefully this video reaches. I also just wanted to share with anyone who's interested in learning more about BB Moore Campbell, who this month is named after, or mental health resources for people of color and those in minority communities. You can visit our website at namivirginia.org and then click on our NAMITalks section. We have a variety of blogs that have a variety of resources. You can also visit the Helpline Resources section of our website and see a variety of resources kind of going down different categories. And if you go to NAMI's website, which is just nami.org, it should just come up also with a quick Google. If you type in Helpline to the search bar, they have a big database of Helpline resources, and they also have an extremely large PDF that covers almost every topic you could think of. It's searchable and digital, so that's a good resource as well. And you're welcome to reach out to our helpline anytime. You can see that information on our website too. And on NAMI's website, you can also click on the section at the top that says Your Journey, and then on identity and cultural dimensions to learn more facts and resources for kind of specific communities. But thank you again, everyone. I hope the rest of your day goes well. You stay cool, and I really appreciate you all being here.
Thank you for the opportunity. This is awesome.
Thank you. Yes, I'm about to go swimming.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.